Okay, I want to start off by talking a little bit about why I've chosen the image that I've chosen to process. As you can see here, I've got various different shots, compositions of this particular tree, and then composition of this sort of scene. So I've got, there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, eight or so compositions that I like all of them to some degree, but you can see if you start looking at some of the differences, this original one was without much polarization on. There was a bit of polarization but not too much. You can see that the colours are a little bit less saturated because of the polarization, and you can't see through the water here. And then you can see I experimented slightly. This is a multi-exposure of the two. And you can see that there's sort of different takes on it, and then you can see as I go through, there's some various, just changing the angles, putting more polarization on, experimenting with seeing how it works with the rock, with the water coming around here. Some slightly different length of exposures. One that I've already processed there a little bit, it's a little bit too saturated, that, but I've done some curves on that. And I quite like all of them to some degree, but it's really, sometimes it's really hard to decide which one that I'm really fond of. So what I do is I go through and I go into slideshow. Where are we? View slideshow, and I hover my mouse over 1 and 5, and then I just basically zip through them quite quickly and just get a feeling of which ones I like and which ones I don't like, and that enables me, if I press 1 or 5, that enables me to put these little stars on it. If I press 6 and 7 as well, depends on which ones I like the most, so that enables me, then I can take it off this and just look at the ones again that I'm more interested in, and I use this as a way of sort of selecting the ones that I like. And you can see I've done a bit of a, well, I've done some more stuff there. And what I tend to do is I tend to process a couple of the images quite quickly. So you look, this is my processed folder, and you can see I've got I've saved some various images up here. You can see some ones from the lakes and stuff like that. And then I did a photo merge on a couple of these ones. So you'll see that's one of them. That's the one that I just photo merged this morning. And I'm just sort of experimenting a little bit and sort of seeing. You can see these are all the images that I'm sort of working with. But basically, I do it this way to enable me to leave it for a bit. So I process them, then I leave it for a bit, and then I sort of decide again, come back at a later date and decide which ones that I prefer the most, and then that's one that I really polish off. As you can see, that these are all my sort of these are some of the images I took at the weekend in the lakes, and these are the ones that I'm particularly interested in that I've sorted out. So anyway, let me go back to this one. So what I wanted to do was go back to this image, and I want to process this image for you today. So what I've got two different versions of this image here. You see, one is better exposed for the dark areas, and one is better exposed for light. So you can see I want to maintain some of the more of the movement in the. Let me just make it a bit larger. You can see what I'm talking about. I want to maintain more of the water movement in this particular image, because if you come to this one, it's a bit bleached out at this point, so I want it's not blown out, it's just bleached out. The actual texturing is bleached out a little bit, so I want to have a mixture between these two shots, and I'll decide when I composite them in Photoshop which ones I like the most. So I'm going to start off by processing one of them. So I'm going to open up this first image like so. Let's bring this down to the main work area. Now at the moment it's just a little bit overexposed, so if I just make sure I turn the highlights on, and the first thing I always tend to do is go for the curves. So if I just push the curves and show you what I'm doing, you see here, when I take this down, I want to basically have no areas that are bleached out. Now these little red areas here are bleached out areas. Now obviously in the leaves up here, even though when I turn this off it doesn't look too bad, I'm just looking for an areas with no information in there. So just bring this down like so, and sometimes what I do is I come in here and I just and I take the highlights down a little bit, just and play with that. So you can see I'm basically recovering some of the highlights. So take that down. Then I can sometimes take the exposure down a little bit like that, just to sort of get a more realistic if I go to the 100%, you see now it looks a little bit washed out, but there's only a few highlights that have that are there really. So I'm just going to go. But what's mainly important is that I get an overall look. Now, sometimes what I do is I come in and before I continue with the highlights, I put a graduated filter on this. If I take that exposure down a little bit, which enables me to push certain areas of the image, so I take that to about there, come back into my main area, I can then deal with this more effectively. So what I'm attempting to do is attempting to get part of the image successfully processed. So if I yeah, look at that, add a bit more sharpening, a bit of reduction. So if I take the contrast up a little bit, I'm going to take the shadows up a little bit to bring some more detail into these areas around here. And again, it's just experimenting really with the different to get the way you want it. So I'm just kind of playing around with this a little bit, like so. Now I said before that there's two different shots here that I wanted to make sure that take the contrast down a little bit. So I'm pushing that quite a lot in the shadows. Sorry, not in the shadows. In this area. So if I take that down more, go back into here, I might even just up the contrast a little bit. Take the highlights down a little bit. Now, one of the problems of increasing the contrast is that you increase saturation. So I'm being mindful here of just not putting too much vibrance on this area. I want to. These are kind of quite accurate to the colours that I want, but I want to give them a little bit more of a boost because I personally think that they need it really. So again, it's going in and doing it without worrying too much about certain areas. So if I come into 100% and just check where it looks like, now the colours to me here look pretty genuine, but they're a little bit dark. Now the problem is I've tried to maintain some of the highlighted areas here, but I still need to push certain parts of it. So I might even just bring this up a little bit here and take this down a tad. So I'm increasing the contrast, but the thing is, you need to do that. Because it's still. What I'm also going to do is I'll also use some dodging burning to enable me to get a bit better results when I come through. So if I look at that, and then I'm going to take the shadows down a little bit, and I'm not going to worry too much about this area here being blend out, because I'm going to take the bit from the other. I'm going to take it from the other one. So I'm going to take that up a little bit. Take that down a little bit. Just move this up like so. Decrease the amount of area. There we go. Increase the contrast a little bit in there. So I'm not going to worry too much about bleaching a few of those areas out. So I can see I've got some areas that are bleached out, but not too much of an issue. I'm going to deal with saturation in a little bit. So I quite like the saturation. The green's a bit too much here, so I'm going to come in back into my into here, and I'm going to take the green down a little bit. Certainly the light green, so it's more of the light green. So if I'm going to take the saturation of the green down just a very small amount, and the aqua, and I actually quite like the saturation of the yellow, so I'm going to take the yellow. Let's have a look, see what that does when I do that. Okay, so it's the orange that I really want to up the saturation of, because I really like this sort of mid-tone orange here. I'm going to do that a little bit, not too much there. So I quite like this area here, and I quite like this area down here. So I'm pretty happy with that as a first go. What I also want to do is when your camera raw processing has this this profile thing which corrects some kind of it corrects camera issues. Now it recognises which lens I've used, my EF 24-105, but it knows the problems with that particular lens, so it automatically sorts out your distortions and your lens issues. So your vignetting and your chromatic aberrations, it can sort out for you. So it can sometimes be quite useful to go in there and sort that out. Also, if you come in and yeah, so the sort of vignetting and the sort of general problems. So chromatic aberrations as well is quite a good one to sort of get rid of at this stage. So basically, you want to just work around this a little bit, and so I'm pretty happy with that at the moment. It's a little bit too bright at the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a couple more of these filters on an angle to give it a bit of vignetting. Okay, that's probably a bit too much. Take that up a little bit, just so that it directs your eye. If I take that, just have a, yeah, quite like that dark actually. So it directs your eye to where you want it to be, which is the centre of the image, as far as I'm concerned here. I might crop a little bit of this in later on. If I just take that exposure up and take the contrast down, I don't want too much contrast there, but I want the exposure to be down, like that. Take the contrast down on this, so I don't always like too much contrast on that. Highlights, yeah. Okay, so when I click away from that, you can see it pushes your eye down a little bit. I need a bit more contrast in this area, but I'm just going to come in and take. Actually, I'm going to leave that there, and just take the dark down for a small amount, because we don't need to worry too much about it being perfectly exposed in that area. So I'm pretty happy with that as a general rule. I'm just going to go check a few things first. So if I come into my 100%, so I've got the image looking, the exposure looking the way I want it to be, and I want to check for things like noise now. You can see in the water area here there is some noise, and the best place to deal with that is actually in the raw processor. It doesn't always work. I mean, I won't go to town completely on it. I'm just going to get rid of some of it. You see, I want to keep my sharpness in these sort of areas, and sometimes if you ramp this right the way up, you lose some detail in the decent sharp areas, and you want to have some area of texture in this area. So basically, I wouldn't go overboard with this. Just so you're basically getting rid of a lot of the noise in the shot, but not every single bit of the noise, because you want a bit of the texture. And also, I just have to have a quick look at the sharpening at this stage. So again, this is at 100%, so this is pretty good really. So if you look at some of the areas on here, it's pretty sharp. So I'm pretty pleased with that as it stands. So I'm gonna open that image up in Photoshop now. So if I open that image, there's a few problems in there, so I'm going to leave that as it is. I'll come back into Bridge. I'm going to come in here and select that image, and I'm going to basically copy the settings from the raw processor. And because I've bracketed this shot, I'm going to come in and I'm going to paste the settings. They're the exact same settings. You can see you can choose which you want to paste, but I'm pretty happy with that. So if I press OK on that, what that'll do is that then it's obviously for the darker shot, but you can see it gives me some more detail in the water area. I don't like this water area here. I quite like the fact that it's nice and smooth around this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then choose later to process this just for the water area really. So if I open this shot up, it's gone a bit too dark, but I kind of want the darkness in the water, and I'm just going to kind of bring the contrast down a bit, because I want to maintain some lovely textures and stuff in the water. We don't need to worry too much about the highlights because it's a darker shot, so I'm taking that back up. Come back into the curves. Again, the highlights are not necessarily an issue, so I'm going to take that back up again, which basically changes the shape of the curve with these pixels at this end. You can see I could choose to clip it down here, but basically if I just have another look at this area here, just out of reference really, I've actually got a spider connected to my machine. It's which sets my colours and the calibration of the monitor accurately. It's important to do that when you're doing this kind of stuff. But that's one of those things that you need to. It's too much to talk about now. But essentially, that means that when I'm adjusting this, I can see it on the screen and it's right for me. I'm just going to check the highlights. I want to make sure that I keep the contrast. So if I just take that down so it just disappears just a little bit, and I'll just check the levels again, go to 100%. Just looking at this, yep, that looks pretty good, nice and smooth, nice and sharp. I actually want these lines and stuff in here, so I'm actually going to take this sharpness down. I'm also going to take the noise reduction down a little bit, because we've actually got an image here which is it's because it's a more underexposed shot of the other area. We won't have as much problems with noise, and I actually want some of this sort of texture in these kind of areas. So I'm going to come here and I'm just going to take the highlights down a bit. I should notice there's a highlight on that rock. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So I like this whole area here. It's got an interesting contrast. This area is not exposed. This area is not exposed properly. But I'm just going to open that image. Just double check that. Yeah. Hang on a minute. Where are we? Double check that we have got this checked on, which we have. If I'm open that, because if we didn't do that, it's changed it's changed stuff in the image. So that enables me to sorry, in the format of the image. Basically, it's changed the shape of the image, so it wouldn't work to compress them to. So if I select this and then copy it, select all, copy it. I'm not going to save that. I'm going to paste this into here. Okay, so you can see we've got 2 layers on here. So they've got one image, 2 layers, and that means that the foreground is the main one. So I'm just going to duplicate this background, get rid of that. Drag that to the bottom. So at the moment what we've got the light area on the top, which is I want to keep for the top area here. I also want to keep around this area and all this, and I just want to paint in some areas around this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this button down here, which is called the add a layer mask. Now what this is going to do is, if I paint now into this area, so if I get my brush smaller. Oh, hang on, just give me a second. The brush, it does this sometimes in Photoshop, it's really annoying. Just give me a second. Okay, so what I wanted was this brush, so I could see the size of the outside of the brush. Now what I had to do really, and this is, I think this is, well, it is a bug, but you have to go into the preferences, and you come into this cursors. Now the default is on this normal brush tip, but it was on this already, but I had to change it back to precise to be able to get, ironically, the actual circle around it. So it's basically it's a bug in Photoshop. It's doing the opposite as what it should be. Anyway, get us back into this. I want to paint some of these areas in that I quite like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by taking an opacity down to 20-ish%, and I'm going to paint a black area. So if I can see here, when I paint across here, you should be able to see it's starting to go darker. So you can see I'm doing it quite gradually, because I don't want it to be too much. Actually, I'm going to start off a bit more than that. I'm going to start off painting in quite fast, and then we'll knock it back when we want some darker areas. So basically, I really want this area around here to have more detail, like so. I don't like this, so I'm gonna swap that around, and I quite like this to be white. So I'm just gonna paint that. So I want to keep that area there. Swap that back around again. Sometimes it's useful to paint it like so you can see where you're painting and what's 100%, what isn't 100%. So if I take that to, actually I'm going to take that to 100%. So I'm just gonna paint like that. So I'm just going to do it automatically. If I just change the brush, the hardness of the brush, so it's a bit sharper, so I've got more control over where it actually paints, because otherwise it's just too soft, like so. So that looks pretty good. Turn that back on to get an idea. Now obviously I've done that, but I've got some issues in here, and this is one of the main mistakes people make. If I come back into this 100%, you can see this area here on the rock has gone too dark in relationship to the background. Because if I right click on this and go disable layer mask, you can see that's the original and that's the darker, and you can see the I've painted over the area that I want. So what I'm going to do is I want to deal with it now. You can see here as well, there's another issue in this area here that I've not painted accurately. So what you need to do is go back into a smaller brush, go back in, select this area here. So we want the black area is going to be punching through. So if I paint in here, you can see that's kind of what I want it to be, but obviously not quite as strong as that. If I just undo that, and then soften my brush off a little bit, take it down, and I want to just, actually it's too much, I'm going to take this to be a lot softer. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to gradually paint this area here. The best thing to do is on 100%, because if you do it on 100% you get a very accurate way of doing it. So again, I'm just very, very slowly coming in, and then if I need to come in and paint away the area. Now this is going to take some time to do this, because it's a very time consuming process, this. And the thing is, people that spend time in this area and do it seamlessly, it works an awful lot better. Because big mistake that a lot of people make is that they do it and they do it too quickly, and it basically destroys, it gives like a halo around your object. It can be useful to do this kind of thing as well, because you can see where I've painted. So again, take this down. So I'm just doing this quite slowly. Now it's better to have a slight dark area around it. It's better to have a dark halo around the dark areas than a light halo around the light areas, because it's much more noticeable, and people will see that much more readily if you do that. So I'm just gonna, I'll pause a minute. I'm gonna go and do it on the rest of the image, but you can see what I'm doing here is the same thing all the way along. Let me just pause the recording so it'll take too long. Okay, I've done all around this area here. There's a slight problem in that area I'll fix in a minute, but what I'm doing now is I'm going around and looking at the areas that I wanted to make a little bit darker, because I wanted to add some more contrast in this area, because it sort of makes it feel a bit nicer, and this area here is certainly not contrasty enough. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to add some more areas, and I'm going to use the fact that I've got a dark and a light area to use a selective dark and lightening. Okay, so I'm selecting areas that I want to keep light and adding the light side to it, and then going in, and so I'm almost doing like dodging and burning with two different files here. And then if I go to the dark area and make my brush larger and take the opacity quite down, I can just add some darker areas around this edge to push my eye back into the frame. I just want to check in, this kind of area, it's certainly darker, and double check up here that I've kind of got what I want, which I'm pretty happy with that. So that's kind of, actually I said I'd just fix this area down here. So if I come in and go to actual pixels, again just to test it, go backwards and forwards to see what's going on, and do that kind of thing there. You see, when I turn it on and off here, you can see clearly at this point there's an issue around this area here. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to carry on painting a little bit. So if I just come down here, there's a little white line down here. This needs to be a bit darker. So I want to punch through to the dark. So basically I have a black brush on here, and I'm just going to come in and select this kind of area a little bit, like so, to make it a bit darker, and also take that off, like so I can see what I'm painting through to. You can see there's a white on the edge there, and I want to have it to be dark. There we go, let's fix that. Okay, yeah, it's looking a bit better, so it looks a little bit weird. I think that's just normal, because I think yeah, when I turn it on and off and on, it's actually there anyway. You can see there's a little line there. It looks like a bit of a halo, but it's not. It's in the image. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So you get to a stage where you're reasonably happy. You don't have to worry completely get it right, but that's pretty much the way I want it. I'm not sure I like this area here, so I'm just going to check what that is. No, it's actually in the image. I think I might sort that out later, but that looks a bit too wrong to me. It's the balance. I want your eye to come around this rock and go back up to here. So I'm going to flatten that off. Merge. Well, I'm going to flatten image. Now I'm going to image auto contrast. Just to double check, not very much happened there, so I don't need to do that. What that does is actually looks at the levels and it looks for white and dark areas, and there's clearly areas in the histogram that are light and areas that are dark. If I just show you where's open up my where's my histogram? Let me just let's have a look here. Oh, this is a new version of Photoshop that I'm opening up. I can't remember whether histogram is in this version. Give me a second, I'll just find it. Okay, so the histogram, if you go to window and then come down to histogram, if I drag and drop it onto this area here, so it's a separate line, you can see we've got a nice even spread of pixels all the way across. So have a look at so look at that. You can see the histogram. It just gives you a representation of what the pixels are, and it goes all the way across. And I quite that. That's a pretty decent spread. So. Let me go to the next stage where I want to. So, from a compositional point of view, I really like the way that this this diagonal brings your eye. This diagonal of the tree brings your eye down into the middle of the shot. I also like the way I purposely sorted these branches out so they were the green ones were on the outskirts. I was trying to create a natural arc in it around this tree, and then your eye is pushed down into the flow of the river, and basically because of the flow of the river, your eye comes down here and around the rock. Okay, and I purposely did this, and I was thinking about, I actually moved a lot of twigs here, so I moved a lot of twigs so that I could get some space around this rock, and I purposely placed it in this bottom, well, it's not really in the bottom left hand corner. I did experiment with it, put it right in the bottom left hand corner, but it didn't work with the angles of this line here. I wanted a diagonal coming up here, so I wanted this to go around, your eye to go around it, and I wanted to. I thought about putting this central, and I did try in a couple of the compositions. But what happened was, when I put it central, it just felt a bit empty on this side, because obviously it's just clean water coming down here. And I did experiment. If I go back into Bridge, and I'll show you, I did sort of experiment with quite a few different versions of it. So I'll take that off. You can see I started off by giving loads of space around the outside. You can see, and then you notice there's some twigs there, and I got rid of the twigs and did that. And then I came and I basically was experimenting, getting that in the centre and being able to have lines so your view can go all the way around it. This composition was quite a challenge to get it the way I wanted it, especially because there's water moving in, and I was playing with the polarizer as well. That's quite a balanced composition, which was quite similar to the one that we've actually ended up with. But I didn't want too much space around the bottom, and as I said before, I experimented with giving it more space around the bottom, and that again, these are all working compositions. But again, it's a matter of which one works the best. So I was happiest with this one. What I'm not happy with is slightly this almost too much space on the top here, and I want to sort of crop a little bit this, and especially it loses a bit of power. See, there's some leaves up here. I either want to do some work in this area to make this stronger, or I want to crop to give me a better interpretation. And there's a few choices that I can make during this image. So I've got the exposure sorted out, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So what I want to do is I either want to crop. So I'm going to just test this. I don't know whether it's going to work or not. So if I come to crop, and I'm going to change it to, I'm going to crop it to, let's have a look here, what I was going to do, 4:5, okay. So if I'm just going to test this area out, and when I crop it, I want this diagonal on the bottom, so I want to maintain this here, and that's actually quite a nice on the thirds. Okay, so you lose some of the kind of detail up here, and that's quite a nice crop actually. What I want to do then is I'm going to bring. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, hang on a minute. Sorry, I want to. Oh, it's all going wrong now. Hang on a minute. If I just bring that back in, and I didn't want to do it the whole way. Sorry, I should have done this beforehand. It's a new version of Photoshop that's throwing me a little bit. See, I quite like that, but I feel I'm cheated a little bit by the fact that I actually used the branches up here to push your eye down, and I had a natural balance around the shape of the tree. You lose a bit of that when you crop it like that, so I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is I want to push this and stretch this down a little bit, and this is really the real advantage of Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this composition, so I like it. So if I view my rulers, so if I put my rulers on, I'm going to drag it down. So I'm going to keep my 5:4 crop. I'm just going to keep that to be there, so I can. That's a natural third. I'm going to get rid of the crop, okay. And I'm going to come back in, so take that back off, so unconstrained. Go back into this, and I'm going to select this area here, and I'm going to try this. I don't know if it will work or not, and I'm going to basically Control T, which is through transform. I'm going to bring this down and push it a little bit, and see if I can get away with it. So I don't want to push it the whole way. I want to maintain that a little bit. I then want to add to my selection and get the rest of the frame, and I'm going to push the whole lot down. And rather than using Control T, I'm going to use Content Aware now. So I want to maintain the sort of the aspect ratios here. So if I go to Image, I don't remember where this Transform, and I want to use which one is it? I want to use Content Aware Scale. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down, and it'll stretch all of it for me. I want to have a 5:4 image, but I don't want to lose too much of this kind of natural circle around the main area here. I'm quite happy with that as we stand. You can't push it too much. We've lost the thirds slightly, but I'm not too worried about that. It's still not too far off. If I come back in, and because you can't distort it too much because it'll look wrong. Image crop, just to check. Now I'm pretty happy with that, actually. That's a lot better. Okay, I've lost this third. Actually, I could have lost a bit more of that. So if I go back, so if I come back in here and not that. Where's my history? My history's here. So I'm going to come back to go back to my Content Aware. Go back before that. Okay, so I've scaled that down a little bit. I'm going to do it again. So I've selected it all. Edit, Content Aware Scale. I'm going to take that down a little bit, not too much. There, that'll do me. Hit return. And this time I'm going to get rid of these first. I want to stop worrying too much about the thirds on here. So that's okay. I mean, it feels a bit squashed in the bottom here now. I'll just go back before I did that. I quite like. Yeah, I think I'm just going to do that a very small amount. Right, I think I've done it too much there. I'm going to take these off first before I so I don't have to worry too much about the thirds, because sometimes it can be a bit distracting. Yeah, I quite like the bottom. So what I'm doing, I'm going to select an area here, something like that, and then I'm going to use the content image, Content Aware Scale, bring that down a little bit. So I'm just squeezing the water. You can see what's happened there is it's squeezing the water a bit. Hit return. Taking quite a long time to do this. I don't know why it's taking so long. Then I'm just going to double check what my 5:4 looks like. I suspect I'll still have to cut a bit more of this. So if I go back into my crop tool, come back in here and go 4:5. So yeah, that's getting there. So this time I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to do that. So that actually is working quite well. There, I'm pretty happy with that. So if I just sometimes I zoom right out and make it really small to get an idea of the actual of how it feels. We have lost some information at the top there, but because this is like a third of the shot, and you can test that out by you select all of it and then Control T and then turn this on. It gives you an idea of where the third is. So the third line is about there. It's a little bit less than the third, but it's not far off. But you know, that feels quite a balanced shot now for me. you know, and again, what I said before, I tend to zoom right out to see how it feels. This area here is quite heavy and quite difficult to work with in some ways, so I still need to do some dodging and burning on this. So I'm going to bring it back into this kind of shot. What you should perhaps do, if you're not 100% sure about the crop, go back before it, save the image. So if I save as, I'm going to save that as TIFF, the original name of it, so I'm going to an _01. So I'm not 100% sure about that, and I can always go back and have a look. Okay, then I'm going to come back down to the crop and just see how I feel about it. It feels like I need to push more on this side, so if I come in and do this kind of thing, just to check, that feels a bit better to me. Something like, you see, I'm not quite so sure about that. If I just undo that, what I can do, which is quite a useful thing to do sometimes, for me, I'm not sure that there's too much space around the bottom of that, and this has got a decent feel to it. I think I can push that a bit like so. If you do this too much, it will distort the image too much. So that's pretty decent. And then I'm going to get rid of that because I don't like that, and see if it improves it. So if I just come up here a second. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to come in, and but what's happening is it's distracting your eye. As your eye comes down here, it's stopping on this bit. It's not free flowing, and I don't particularly like that. Now, what I can do, I can use my this tool. So if I get this, which is I forgot what it's called now, my clone stamp, that's right. Okay, and I'm going to select an area that's similar colour, white, and I'm going to make sure that it's on a low number, and I'm just going to start painting that area in. Now there's two ways I could have done this. To me, this is the more effective way, because what you do is you can just control it a bit more. So just the idea is I paint without being able to recognise. If I come back down to actual pixels and just zoom out a little bit, that's pretty damn good. So it's a shadow of the natural shadow of the rock. So I'm just gonna do that. What I sometimes do when I'm doing this, I sometimes copy it before and afterwards so I can see. So I haven't done it now, but I sometimes do that. And I won't worry about that actually, because next time I do it I will. So now actually I want to make sure that this area here is better organised. Now for me at the moment this needs a bit more saturation on here, and the greens aren't quite nice. They don't pop out as much as I would like them to. So because I took the polarization off, which has made these not quite as vibrant. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a copy of this particular scene here, and I'm going to do some curves. Start off with image adjustments. I'm going to do some curves. Now I'm going to ignore this top area because that's pretty good if you ask me. I'm just going to add some more contrast, which will increase the saturation. So if I like to show you, look, you see the saturation has gone up a little bit. Okay, it's increased the contrast a little bit. I'll just take that down and take that up, so I want a little bit less. So if I just have a look there, it's almost too dark. But you can see it's got a lot nicer result in that area. Press OK on that, and because I've made a copy of the before and afterwards, I'm going to put the one that the new one I'm going to put in the background here. Now I'm going to use another layer mask, and I'm going to paint through the areas that I'm happy with. So I was quite happy with it increasing the contrast in this area. I'm going to take my brush up a little bit more because it's about 70%. So I'm just going to paint this area in, like so. I might just do this area here, then just add a bit of contrast in this area. I don't do it down here because obviously if I did it everywhere it would be too dark, like so. I'm also going to increase saturation. Actually, I'm going to take that down a little bit before I do that. So if I take a little bit of that out, so if I just take a little bit around that area out, I'm going to increase saturation, vibrance, just take that up a little bit, like so. And if I paint this area in again, it'll naturally increase that saturation around the areas that I want it to, which is what I wanted. I don't want that to be too saturated there. Take that down a bit, like so. So you can see there's a natural saturation. If I disable that, so if I switch between the two now, you can see it's very subtle, but it's definitely got a natural saturation there. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to flatten that, copy it again. I'm going to use some of these tools here, so dodge and burn tools. So if first of all I'm going to dodge. Now this area will make it. This area makes it brighter. So it basically highlights certain areas. So again, I've copied it off. So there's a problem in this area. So if I just get a smaller brush, dodge. What was it? Dodge. Yeah, dodge, which will make it the brighter areas brighter. So again, you can see if I press this a few times, you can see it's going to increase the contrast on the brighter areas. It's on 8%, so it's quite less. And I'm going to take it back down, and in this, certainly in this area here, I'm going to increase the contrast. And increasing the contrast should add a bit of saturation. I'm going to add some saturation. So saturation, take this down, I don't need too much, because I want that to definitely be a bit greener. So add some subtle saturation, not too much. So if I just check the difference, much better, much better. Now if I come back in and do dodging and burning these areas, now the saturation here is quite nice. I might have to desaturate for the start of this, but there's certain grey areas here that I want to work with. So again, I'm going to basically up the contrast in certain parts of this where I think it needs a bit of a boost. So that's definitely a bit there. You see, I personally like quite contrasty images. Now, I know that a lot of people don't, but it's certainly something which adds to the pop. And I'm only picking certain areas. I'm not doing all of it, because if you do all of it, it tends to have a problem. If I add some darkness, so I'm pressing my spacebar to move around the image. There's quite a lot of darkness here, but in the areas that I've made a bit lighter, I need to make that a bit darker. So just to check, so if I just zoom in here a little bit, the difference between the two, yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that, and that's a lot better. I might pull a bit of this area up, because I think it needs some lighter areas on here as well, so I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to dodge and burn, so I'm going to first of all dodge, so I want to bring some of these areas a little bit, so some of these yellows I want them to be popping out at the back. Now I don't want to do too much of this, because it'll destroy the image a little bit. If I go and get some darker areas. Now normally you want to, at the peripherals of an image, you want to make it darker to help push your eye back in. Now I don't want to do this everywhere. I certainly don't want to do it on the tree trunk, but areas like this here to emphasize the water flow is quite a nice to make it darker. And you can see if I click it on and off, you can see it's improving it very slightly. Pretty happy with that actually. So I'm going to flatten the image again. I'm going to save it, save as. So this is number 2. Just because I'm happy with that. Now I think that there's a slight oversaturation here, so I'm gonna come into vibrance, take the vibrance down just a very small amount. So I just double check on the preview to. Okay. I'm not sure whether I've done the right thing there, because I quite like vibrant images. Very, very subtle. Very subtle. But sometimes what you can do is, if you're not sure, you can copy. Certain parts of the image can be too vibrant and certain parts can look pretty decent. So there's certain parts of this that look a little bit too vibrant. So I'm going to image adjustments, and I'm going to take the vibrance and take it down by 5. Now because I've made copies of this, I'm going to get the vibrant one in the background. So this is the vibrant one, and I want to pick areas that I want to turn down. So rather than doing it on the whole thing, I can do this sort of selectively. So for me, this area here feels a bit too vibrant there, although ironically I wanted to add some vibrance. I'm just going to take it down a little bit, just so basically so people aren't too distracted. Take that up a little bit, because one of the criticisms that you get a lot, yeah, I'm painting on. Am I painting on the... Oh, it's the burn tool. Oh, damn. Okay, that's wrong. I'm going to reopen that. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. I basically was on the wrong tool here. I was on the burn tool. So what I wanted to be on was the paintbrush, because it wasn't doing anything. I thought, why is it not doing anything? So again, back into this. Make sure it's on a reasonably low opacity. I'm just going to take a bit of the. I've taken the vibrance out, so you can see. You can see there's a very slight difference between the two, and I'm just going to paint some of the vibrance away at certain areas so it feels a bit more believable. Okay, because sometimes. Actually, I'll just take that last one off, because sometimes it can just feel a bit overly saturated. So if I take that area there, that area, and a little bit of it here, although I quite like the vibrancy in this image. If I just show you what I mean, if I disable that layer mask, you probably got better see this, but it's a very, very subtle effect. I want to just if I just image adjustments, vibrance again, I'll show it dramatically. You can see it just helps it a little bit. So I just take that down and take that. That's a bit too much actually. Take it there. That's okay. Now there's a natural, when you put curves on things, there's a natural increasing vibrance anyway, which is the problem I've caused myself. But I actually quite like vibrance anyway. But what you can use to test things, you can do an auto color, which sometimes I quite like the results, but this time, let's have a look here. It's taken a bit of the. It's actually added a bit more contrast and made this a bit darker. Ironically, that to me looks a bit more vibrant. So I'm not sure that I like that, so I'll leave that. And then you can also try and auto tone. Actually, what can be sometimes a good idea to do is if you copy this, auto tone. So if there, that's darker. So I quite like it in some areas. I quite like it at the top area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically use I'm going to use a filter to push through. So if you look here again, so I quite like the automated process at the top, but I didn't like it at the bottom. So what I did was I used a gradient filter. So you can see. That, so I quite like that. I prefer it darker at the top, which is the auto color version, so I push through to the bottom, which is the original. And for some reason I did quite like, actually, a little bit. It's gone a bit darker, but something about it I quite like certain areas. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint a bit of it away, not a lot of it. So let me just double check again. Yeah, it's taken like a bit of the redness out of this, and which has increased the green feeling of it. So I'm going to, in certain areas, I'm not going to do all of it. I'm going to take it away in certain areas. So again, I'm painting black. I want to paint white on that. So again, I'm not doing all of it, just a bit to add a bit of colour contrast. And it basically doesn't look like you're doing very much, but what you're doing is you're basically you're increasing the range of your image. Okay, so just check that, because that to me is too much, but when you turn it off, it's too much. But when I turn that back, you can see it's too orangey. So I'm pretty happy with that. So if I flatten the image again, save that. So I'm quite happy at the moment. Okay. Last thing I need to do is deal with the dust spots and any other issues that I might have, things like chromatic aberrations. Now at the moment, because I clicked automatic chromatic aberrations. Chromatic aberrations are, let's see if we can find any in here, tend to happen when you've got very light areas. So if I zoom right in, it's very, very slight one on here. There's a very slight line on the edge of this. On the edge of the line. Normally they happen when you're pointing into a bright area of forest, and you get sort of green and reddy lines around the outside of it. I've done an automatic lens correction on here, which has done a pretty good job, to be honest, and there's probably not too many on there anyway, because of the nature of chromatic aberrations. Sorry, the nature of the fact I'm pointing this into a not into a too bright an area. Also, one of the disadvantages of using the automated chromatic aberrations is it can sometimes soften the image a little bit. If I go to 100%, that's pretty sharp anyway, so I'm not too worried. So there's not too many problems there, but there will be some dust spots because there just normally always is. So now the area to look for them is generally, if I go to zoom it in 100%. So let's just go to my zoom tool, make sure I'm at 100% actual pixels. I'll go out a little bit because I'm trying to look for them really. I'm sure I saw some. There must be some dust spots. Here we go. There's one. There's a few of them. So basically, you just go in and you can do this on the raw processor, but I chose not to because, well, it would take a long time, and you don't always need to worry too much about it in the raw processor, because you're best to do it in the raw processor if you're doing like a wedding or something, because then you can go and do them all automatically, get them all at once, and you can copy the dust spots. So if you do more than one image, you don't really need to worry about not doing it in Photoshop. So I'm going to come in now. Some of these probably won't be dust spots. There might be just the natural texturing of the images, but I'm not particularly keen on certain sort of looks of them. Now, you want to be careful with things on your monitor. Make sure you've got a clean monitor at this stage. I've got a couple of dots on my monitor. There's some interesting stuff going on here. That looks like some issues. That's probably to do with when there's some horrible issues here. It's when I did the scaling. It's caused some jaggedy lines on here which I need to sort out. They look horrible. That's a really bad thing in Photoshop. What I'm going to do there is I'll just finish up looking with dust spots first, which I don't think there are anymore. But I don't like this in the slightest. Don't particularly like that. So I'm going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to come in and I'm using my dodge and burn. Not dodge and burn. I'm going to come in and I'm going to fix this. So if I want to go to 100% to do this, to make sure that I'm really properly looking at this. I'm also going to come in here. There's a couple of really small dead pixels that I'm just going to get rid of. So again, that there is a dead pixel. Just a double check. You normally get those in noisy areas, and certainly on a long exposure, which this is. But no, it looks like most dead pixels are gone. But I need to sort out this area here. So if I come in and use my make sure this is on a very low number. We can try something first. I'll try something. There's something that's quite useful to know. Now this could be, it can work or it cannot work. So I'm going to go around the problematic area. First of all, I'm going to try this patch tool, making sure that content aware is on. So I'm going to come up here and do something like, it's a slight problem here. He tries to merge. Now it's in a terrible area of it. What you can also do is you can use the content aware scale. So if I press Control Shift and F5. Or maybe they've changed the keyboard shortcut. Sorry, it's Shift and F5, not Control Shift. And then go to Content Aware. So this is called Content Aware Fill. This can sometimes work, and it can sometimes not work. Terrible job. Okay. Let me just try. No, that's not going to work. That works really well if I wanted to get rid of that, for example. If I just show you Content F5, hit Return, that should work quite well. That's not that brilliant actually, but that can work quite well to get rid of things. It basically analyzes around the selection, and it fills the stuff according to your selection. But this here, what I should perhaps have done is go back before I didn't even notice this was a problem, but I can probably fix this quite simply. So if this area here is good, this area here is bad. So I'm going to start just painting, just gradually, so I can get rid. Which, here we go, and it's a nice smooth area, but obviously if I printed that out it would look absolutely terrible. I also want to check some issues here. So basically I'm smoothing, okay, but my particular monitor at the moment, because I am recording this screen, it's changed me to basic colour. Now I'll probably need to check this image on complicated, well, on high bit depth, but essentially there's a slight issue with my display because of this, because of the recording of the screen. which doesn't normally happen, so it looks a little bit basic, the display. So what I'm doing basically is I'm painting so there's none of these jaggedy horrible soft edges. This area is a bit more of a problem, so I need to go a bit and deal with this a bit more effectively. Again, I'm using a soft brush, and I can see there's a line along here as well which I need to sort out. So I'm using a soft brush to paint this area away, and because I'm doing it very, very gently, it shouldn't be a problem. So I come up here. So you can see I'm just I'm putting lots of time into this, because it would look terrible if you got it wrong. Just to soften this whole area out. Now you can need to make the brush a bit smaller, because I want to just. Actually, I'm going a bit slow here. I'm going to increase that a little bit just to speed me up a little bit. Now, the reason why I'm doing this gradually is because I want to maintain this softness. And if I paint it too hard, I'm basically mixing the palette here. Oh, that's wrong. That's pretty good. Just take this down a bit. There we go. What I also want to do here is use the spot healing brush, make it very small, because this is where I changed the. See this line here? This is where I went across the whole image and do that. So basically, it's like a spot healing brush, and it will go across and analyse everything, and it might do a terrible job. It's been an absolutely terrible job. So sometimes it's better not to go across the whole image. So I'm pressing Shift and just going across certain. Oh, it's not doing very good either. So it can be sometimes better to do this manually actually, and just go and do it where there's a real problem. Now, if this was in an area that was, if it was in an area that was, what we're going to call it, that was like a sky area, you could just put it straight across and press Shift and go straight across. But I'm doing this manually now because it looks it'll look terrible if I don't. So I'm basically being aware of where I'm not going across some of these branches, because you would recognise it if you did. So I'm going to come in and just pick certain areas. That's not worked quite so well. So I'm pressing Shift like that. That's not worked quite so well. So I'm going to put a different slant on that. It's not working in the dark areas that great. Also, because obviously when I print this out, I don't want this to be. That's not very good, is it? No, it's not working very well at all. So I'm just going to come in and spot this in a couple of places like this. So basically the idea is that you don't see that I've done it. So again, that's kind of what I want to do. Come back to the area that started it off, that I saw it originally, which is good in the dark areas. Probably better do this quite effectively. Oh, I'm going to undo that. Just undo that. So I want to just come in and see if I can do this. Yeah, that's better. It works quite well in this area. That didn't work so well actually. Just going to come in and leave. Sorry, it's taking a while. I'll pause the recording and get back to you. Okay, I've gone back in and I've basically made sure that I've got all the areas that I sorted out that I wanted to. Basically that happened because I did the free transform and stretched it down, and that's the line that I took on the free transform. Okay, lastly, I'm quite happy with that, but there's some areas here that are a little bit distracting to your eye. So up here it's all working quite nicely. I'm not sure I like this leaf here, but there's certain leaves and stuff that I want to get rid of. So I'm gonna duplicate this. And I'm not going to go through all of it and show you, but I want to just make it so that it's not distracting. And what I should have really done was set this scene up, and then basically I should have gone and tidied it up anyway. But again, just because I'm lazy, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tidy it up using this method. Okay, so certain things are distracting to the eye, and it's just my intention, like removing dust spots, to get rid of some of these things. So I'm going to come in. Make sure content aware is turned on, which it is, and just get rid of some of the ones that I don't like, which are slightly distracting your eye and basically taking your eye from moving in the right area. So some of these work and some don't. So I'm going to just get rid of a few. I'm not going to get rid of all of them, so I want a certain amount of clutter in there, but certain things do distract your eye too much. That line does intersect too much with that. So I'm just going to go in and clean up. I'm going to pause while we do that because I'm already on quite a long recording, so pause. Okay, so what we've got here is an image here which I've cleaned it up a little bit. So you can see I've got rid of some of the clutter. Now I like that fact here. Now the fact that I've got rid of some of this stuff is good, but this to me, I like this image, and I could just get rid of it. But I wanna basically move it so it's down here, because it breaks up, because these are right next to each other. I either want to move this one over here or this one over here. So I've decided to move this one a little bit over here to offset it. Now this is really good new tool in Photoshop CS6 that is called, let's have a look here, where is it? This one here, which is called Content Aware Move Tool. Now what I want to do is I want to copy this over to this area here and then fill the rest of the space in. But because it's got a generic background, what you can do is you can move it and it analyzes what's going on around it, and it basically fills the background in for you, which is absolutely brilliant. Okay, I think it's an amazingly well designed tool. So if I come in here and move this over somewhere like there, again it will analyze around the background. Now if I deselect that, you can see it's so quick that. Now if I just undo that last one, so I'm going to just double check, deselect, I think I actually quite like that to be moved. So I'm going to come in here. I want to keep this, so I'm just going to start moving stuff around a little bit. Now this is a little bit, some people might see this as cheating. I see it as just getting exactly what you want. Now I could have gone in, put that. That's pretty decent. That's really nice actually. This is a new tool that I've only just started using today. So that's just made such a huge difference to that. If I fit that on screen, deselect that, just check. Yep. Much better. A few things that I'm not sure I like that there actually. It sort of clutters. I need to sort of tidy this area up a little bit to make it a bit more smooth in this area, but I'll do that and I'll get back to you. Okay, I've now gone down and I've sorted things out the way I want them. So I've kept some of the clutter because I want to keep some of it. Certain things I've just noticed that I want to just get rid of. So I'm going to come in and get rid of that. Okay, and what I've also done is I've made sure that I've kept certain areas that I've done quite a lot of work in, which this area here, look, you can see there's a lot of work done in that area. I've tried to add some sharpness. So for example, at the moment it looks a little bit soft in certain areas because I've used I've been copying and pasting. So what I've also going to do is picked a sharp area like this, and in a soft area where I've done quite a lot of work in that I want to sharpen up again, I go and select some area that's similar. So this area here needs something doing to it, and I select and just put a little bit of sharpness just in that area. It gives the impression that there's some movement going on, and that certain things that basically clone stamping certain other areas. So again, just so I can add a bit more detail where I've lost it. Also, what I've done is some of the dark areas like this, I've gone in and I've made some darker. Oh, that's not one. Darker areas a bit sharper as well, just to give the impression. And this is very painting orientated. That there's nothing there in the first place. Okay. This is where the creativity comes into it, and there's a lot of time can be spent on this kind of thing, and it's hard to do it while you're talking. But I've just noticed a couple of things I don't like too much. Don't particularly like that very much. It's a bit distracting to the eye, and a couple of these things when you look at them that irritate you a little bit. So this is just the sort of simplification that I should really do. I've gone in and cleaned it up there, but that to me now looks an awful lot better than that. Okay. I want to get rid of this as well, because I don't particularly. This is a tricky one, is this, because it's got this line in front of it. So getting rid of that is quite challenging. But again, this is where painting comes in. So if I come in now, there's a line going across the background there, which I want to keep. I don't want to put a direct line there, but this is quite a tricky thing to get rid of. So this is a matter of being quite careful how you deal with this. So again, I'm taking the opacity down a little bit. I want to I don't want to get. I probably won't get rid of all of it because I want to just break it up a little bit to give the impression that it's still there, but I don't want to try and just replace it with something like this because you might get a slight issue. What you can, I suppose, what I could try and do actually. Now I'll do that in another bit. I want to just try and see if I can just add a bit. There we go. There. So, and then pick a different area, make a bigger selection like so. And I'm not going to get rid of all of it because I don't want to lose certain parts of it. So I don't want to lose this lovely liner on the outside, the fact that this is all silhouetted. So the idea is here I'm just trying to paint to make it look natural. Okay, it can be quite tricky sometimes. There, so something like that. So that is actually, and I'm quite happy with that. So if I take that away now, you can see it improves the composition. If I take that away like so, you can see it improves that part of the composition, and you can still see stuff. Now it looks like there's just a moving leaf in the background behind it, and also it's not quite right. So I just get a bit of this green just to offset it a little bit like so. There we go. There, that's a bit better. There. Okay, so it just doesn't show up quite so much there. Let's have a look, see any other big areas that are problematic. Nothing's really standing out too much. I'm not sure I like that too much. It's a little bit distracting. So I'm going to see if I can do anything with that. Now what I'll try and do this time is I'm going to use this tool again. Actually what I'll do is just to show you the different tools, I'm going to use this. The tricky bit's going to be around this area here to make that look right. I'm going to try and see if this works. So Shift F5, Content Aware Fill. It's not done a bad job at all actually. If I deselect that, that's done a very good job. In fact, you can hardly tell the difference there. Not quite right there. So what I'm doing, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna paint through on that area. Actually, paint back. So make my brush small. Just on a certain area. Make sure it's on black. I'm just gonna paint that back out because I want to keep that. So that's basically I'm painting back into the original image here. So, and yeah, just to break that up a little bit. There, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm also gonna, I'm not gonna flatten the image there. I'm gonna carry on painting on that because I wanna work on that. I'm gonna duplicate the background, hide it, and merge visible. Okay, so I've still got that background, so it's still the original image there, and I'm going to just do a bit more work on that area, just break that up a little bit more. I'm going to do that, pick an area like that, just to give the impression of that line, and perfect. It's gone a bit dark there, so I'm going to just add a bit more colour to that point, so pick an area like that, just to break it up a little bit, something like that, because I think it's gone a bit too dark at that point. Put a bit of lightness in there, so it's automated it for me, but I'm just basically repainting it to make it a bit better. So from that to that, which has worked quite well. I'm not quite sure about that. So look here, if I go to actual pixels, yeah, that looks fine. Just look at it again. That bit is kind of alright. Not sure I like that too much. I'm going to come in and I'm going to get a slightly greenery area there. And sometimes it's a good idea to get really small on the brush because you want to get a nice sharp line around something, because it might feel as though there's something weird going on. If you don't, there we go. That looks pretty good to me. Make that a bit bigger. That area is slightly problematic, so I'm going to come in and put a bit of a brighter area in here. There we go. So basically I'm painting different areas to give myself the feeling that, again, it's quite some sharpness in there, so to take away that automated process. Okay, quite pleased with that. I'm not sure I like that now. That's irritating me a little bit. So what I'm doing, I'll leave it at that because I'm quite happy with that as it is. I need a bit of clutter in there because it's a cluttered scene. Still not sure whether I like these or not. I might get rid of them completely, but we'll see. But I'm pretty happy with that. So if I flatten that image, flat image. Okay, and then last thing I need to do is make it smaller for web. So image adjustments. Actually, no. Convert to profile. So I'm actually, before I do this, I'm going to save it first. File, save, image adjustments, and let me go for. Actually, now I'm going to go. This is what happens when you try and talk and think at the same time. I basically want to change this so it's going to be. Let's have a look here. What I'm going to do. sRGB, that's the web profile that you want to, for putting it on the web. Most browsers use that to get the colours correct. The original file is in Adobe RGB, which is good for print, but I'm changing it to sRGB, which is smaller colour space, to enable me to. It shouldn't change the colours that much. It's basically converting it into a different colour profile essentially. So when you show it on the web, it doesn't change the colours on the web too much. And then image size. So if I go make that, let's go for 1,000 pixels, 1,000 pixels. Interesting, the resolution was 240. It should have been 300, but let's go for 72 in there. 72, and make that 1,000 pixels, 2,000 pixels. Making it quite a big image, but it's a very low resolution, so it will be very good for print. And you can probably leave that. It doesn't really matter. It's just pixel size that's the important thing there. Okay, so I've made it smaller. Okay, and I'm going to put a watermark on it just quickly. So put my website address on there, and I'm going to just hide the watermark to be quite small. So basically I don't want someone trying to get rid of that, so I'm going to make that really faint, and I'm going to put it into an area that is going to be difficult to find. So somewhere like, that's probably not going to be too difficult to find actually. Let me put it somewhere where someone have to do some work to get rid of it. So let's try there. If I just put it on the same angle as that, like that, and I'm going to just make it even fainter so people can't see it. Also, it's very, very faint. The reason for doing this is so that your average person will not just try and climb that out, and it still has my watermark and it can still be read, so something like that, so you can't see it. Okay, now I'm pretty happy with that, and then I just need to flatten that image, and then that's finished, so there we go. Hopefully you've found out some new tools, but this is essentially part of how I process images, and this is in Photoshop CS6. First time I've ever used it actually. I've been using the CS5 so much, and I've not upgraded until recently. But I'm quite behind with other people. I've not had the software for a while, but it's quite a nice tool. Anyway, thanks. Goodbye.